I'm Sherry Madera, the chair of the Future Sustainable Data Alliance, better known as FoSDA. It is a global alliance, and the interests of the alliance are to work together to identify and define the data needed to advance sustainable finance. We've got a global group together, and I'm incredibly happy to today have with me Danae, who's the chief economist and director of research at OMFIF. And she's also the co-chair of the Forward Looking ESG Data work stream with me. So I'd love to hear from you, Danae, about the objectives of our work stream called Forward Looking Data and why it is that we think it's so important.
Thank you, Sherry. Indeed, I'm very honored to be rapporteur with you in this working group, which has a very important mission because we face a lack of forward-looking, granular and comparable ESG data, environmental, social and governance data. And this is very important because these gaps mean that it makes it difficult to measure and understand companies' transition risk and also their strategies for adaptation and achieving carbon neutrality. And this is important for players across the financial ecosystem. So policymakers, central banks, regulators all need this kind of data to understand and measure climate-related risks. And it's an issue for both the private and the public sector in the ecosystem. And what we are trying to do in this group, our objective is to improve definitions and access to forward-looking data. And what this in turn does, and what we hope it will do, is that it helps support and drive efficiency across a range of activities: stress testing, for example, long-term risk assessments, scenario-based prudential regulatory reporting, and also to scale up transition finance.
Right, it's a fantastic contribution to what the Alliance is doing, and it really balances out a lot of the disclosure-based data that we talk about, which typically, if you're looking at disclosures, it's retroactive. So this forward-looking is something interesting and unique. Danae, can you share with us any first thoughts? The report is due to be included with the wider FoSDA report in October, but could you give us a bit of a sneak peek on what is coming out of the work so far, and maybe what are some of the main functions of forward-looking data?
Yes, thank you, Sherry. So there are two key functions to forward-looking data in the way that we're thinking about it in the report. So first, they are key for benchmarking against scenarios, which, as the name suggests, are in themselves forward-looking. And scenario analysis is really a core part of regulators and supervisors' toolkits in stress testing the financial system against climate-related financial risks. And there's also a second function that we're seeing in forward-looking data, which is that they enable an assessment of companies' adaptive capacities from a risk perspective. And this allows regulators, policymakers, but also investors to understand whether and how companies are adapting to future potential disruptions. So these are the so-called physical risks, but also to future policy mitigation, the transition risks that we've been talking about. And so to understand the overall climate-related financial risks. But we're also seeing that there is a growing awareness of the usefulness of these forward-looking data, but there are still challenges and gaps in terms of how we measure them, how we understand them, so the definition and access that we spoke about.
Yes, well, it is important, though, for us to be recognizing where there's gap, but make sure that we're not waiting. We can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So it's important to not act now, even if the data is still a bit imperfect. A last question. There's a lot of stakeholders interested in these issues. How do we interact with them?
Indeed, it is a very active ecosystem. There's a lot of organization, and FoSDA's mission is complementary to what a lot of other actors are doing, and there's a lot of global ongoing initiatives. So defining and understanding ESG data holes and also gaps can serve as the foundation of these initiatives across the ecosystem. So, for example, FoSDA's objectives are very complementary to what the central banks and supervisors are doing. The NGFS, the Network for Greening the Financial System that these institutions have set up, has a work stream on bridging the data gaps that we work with. But also the work of the Alliance can also help standard setters in identifying important forward-looking ESG data. So what we've done is we've conducted a lot of interviews with stakeholders across the ecosystem to understand how are they integrating forward-looking data into their activities, be it investors, be it regulators, be it ratings agencies, in modeling and in analysis. And they can also, we will be publishing some of the results of these activities, as you mentioned, in a report that's coming up. But also, I'd like to use this opportunity to encourage them to get in touch with us and also to help us work together in identifying and completing this very important mission.
Thanks very much, Danae. I share your view that we need more input and we need more reviewers for this important work. So I hope people will be getting in touch off the back of this. Great to hear about the progress and the conclusions in the early stages, and very much looking forward to the publication of the report and working really closely together. Thanks very much.